Happening now on Grid Tonight, Chief Rodney Childers will move over to Spire Motorsports in 2025. Can he help take them to new heights? Noah Gragson has found a new home for 2025 at Row Motorsports. Will he be able to find success with a team that's currently on the rise? Bubba Wallace was penalized for the post-race contact at Chicago with Alex Bowman. What was the punishment? Hello to all of our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I want to apologize to all of our viewers for being over an hour late. We had some things happen, but we got everything figured out, and we're ready to do what we love to do every Wednesday night, which is bring you the weekly motorsports news. I'm Kobe Lambeth, and with me are Ben Snyder from Grid Encore and NASCAR.info, and thank you so much to Matthew Owens for filling in tonight from the Ultimate Sports Radio Network. We encourage everyone to comment in the chat, ask questions, and support us through Super Chat. Now, Ben, take it away with our top story this evening, a very NASCAR-heavy show on tap for tonight.
That's right, Kobe. Lots of NASCAR news since we were last on the air, so let's recap some of it right here, right now. We'll start with a move that I think many people didn't see coming. Spire Motorsports landed perhaps the most coveted crew chief on the market for the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series season by signing Rodney Childers. Now, with Stewart-Haas Racing ceasing operations at the end of the year, it meant the championship-winning crew chief needed to find a new home. After finishing up his duties leading the number 4 team at SHR with Josh Berry, Childers will start working with Corey LaJoie and the number 7 team next year. LaJoie's current crew chief, Ryan Sparks, will solely focus on his duties as the team's competition director in 2025. Childers says he likes how Spire is investing in people, because we can buy the same chassis, bodies, parts, but the people are the ones who make the difference. And the graphic on your screen is courtesy of Spire Motorsports themselves. Matthew Owens here with us. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us on such short notice tonight. And we'll start obviously with this top story here. Are you surprised that Childers has chosen a team on the rise like Spire instead of going to a championship contending organization, or perhaps a team trying to rebuild former championship contending aspirations like an RCR or something?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me. Glad to be on anytime. I know a lot of people was surprised that he just didn't follow Josh Berry to the Wood Brothers, because that's what everyone seemed to think he would do. Wherever Josh Berry went, he would go. Bob Pockrass kind of put out some cryptic tweets that wasn't going to be the case, and it turns out it's not. But I'm not really surprised that he chose Spire, or that Spire chose him. Everyone should have chosen him. Not overly surprised that he chose Spire. That team is building big things, and I think they've shown so much progression over the last couple of years alone, and especially this year. I think it was probably a pretty easy decision for him to look at Spire Motorsports and say, this is a young, progressing organization that now I can go in and put my fingerprints all over and make a real difference for a team that's still starting from scratch. Is that the right phrase? I think it probably is. They've been around for a while now, but they're still very new, certainly new to being competitive. It's a team that did finish second a couple of weeks ago in Nashville, not the 7 car, but Spire car did finish second at Nashville. All 3 of them were in contention to win. I know those were very crazy circumstances, but you have to put yourself in the right place to take advantage of those circumstances, and they did. But this is a huge get for the team, obviously. Rodney Childers has 40 wins as a crew chief. That's tied for 11th most in NASCAR history, with the likes, he's tied with Jimmy Finnig. He's ahead of Paul Wolfe and Alan Gustafson and Adam Stevens, Greg Zipadelli. This is an elite crew chief, and this is a huge get for that team.
You know, Matthew, I frequently hear people say, I think Corey LaJoie just needs that one chance, right? You know, Spire hasn't necessarily been the greatest equipment. He was part of a very strong NASCAR Next class. I mean, my goodness, over a decade ago now. But he's really only relevant on the super speedways and I guess Atlanta now, which is a drafting track. So I think that people thought he got that chance when he got to fill in for Chase Elliott last year in the Hendrick car. Finished just outside the top 20, didn't really do as much with it as I think people were hoping. This, you could perhaps say, is his second one chance. This is, I think, a lot of people are thinking, potentially a career lifeline, to have a proven veteran atop the pit box like a Rodney Childers come in and try to lead this 17 forward, I think it could do wonders, where we'll see. I think, the truth is going to come out when it comes to Corey LaJoie if it doesn't, because we know what Rodney Childers can do. He's proven veteran leader and one of the, as you mentioned, most accomplished crew chiefs in the history of this sport. So I think the excuses, and particularly as Spire is on the rise, like you were mentioning, excuses are really going to run out if Corey LaJoie can't perform next year. I know I saw the comment come up there. Adam says that he thinks Corey LaJoie could win next year with this combination. I certainly wouldn't put it past him, but I think it would be even more impressive if he can do that outside of Daytona, Talladega, or Atlanta, because he's come close to winning Atlanta a couple times to his credit. But can he improve on the intermediates, on the road courses, on the short tracks? I think that's going to be the true test for him in 2025 with Childers atop the pit box.
Yeah, absolutely. And it will be a put up or shut up year for Corey LaJoie. There's no doubt about it. I think there was a lot of momentum behind the team heading to this season with the signings that they made, and just a lot of positive momentum. And really, of what they have done this season, their best moments have come with Carson Hocevar or Zane Smith. Now, of course, Zane is last in points, basically, of all the drivers that have run all the races. But again, second at Nashville a couple of weeks ago. Carson Hocevar, I've been impressed with the speed he's been able to show in qualifying. He and they need to build a little bit more race speed. But if you look at what they've done on qualifying day, he's been top 15 in 3 of the last 5 races. He's almost always starting top dozen, top 15-ish. I would imagine this is going to be, as I said, a put up or shut up year next year for Corey LaJoie. But you have to think this also helps whoever else is with Spire. Of course, there's a lot going on with Zane Smith. Will he be there? Will he be in Trackhouse? Someone's calling. Sorry. But I think it's going to be huge for the entire organization and hopefully big for Corey.
Yeah, I think nobody's ever questioned Hocevar's talent. It's the maturity level that I think we've called into question at times here, and perhaps we'll get into that a little bit later with one of our stories coming up. But in the meantime, let's continue talking about this massive deal for Rodney Childers. It was finalized on Monday night before the announcement officially was made on Tuesday morning. Now, on last week's episode of Grid Tonight, as Matthew alluded to this a little bit as well, we talked about Josh Berry going to the Wood Brothers next year. Many wondered if Childers would simply follow his current driver over to the famed number 21 Wood Brothers Racing Ford. But during a media availability session yesterday, Childers said he expected the Wood Brothers to take a couple of months to figure out their crew chief situation, but Spire has been a team that was aggressively pursuing his services. Now, in the press release, Childers added that some of the guys he used to work with on the number 4 team went over to Spire and told him how much they enjoyed the culture there. But what really sold him on this organization was them telling him how much they wanted him and how much he could make a difference. Childers was quoted saying, quote, "For anybody in this world, all you want is to feel wanted and loved, and I felt that through them." Now, he also views this as a good place for his family long-term because his children are graduating from high school in 3 years. And with Spire having teams in the Truck Series, he believes this is a team where they can grow, learn, and possibly work themselves someday. Starting next year, he'll be tasked with helping Corey LaJoie take the next step in his driving career, as the number 7 team has struggled compared to teammate Carson Hocevar, as Matthew was just alluding to as well. So, Matthew, I think you kind of answered this there at the end, but do you think Childers can really help the entire organization, not just the 17, but also the 71 and the 77? Can he help all 3 of those cars become playoff contenders and bring out the best of not just Corey LaJoie, but everybody who's driving for that team?
I think he can make them better next year. Playoff contenders is an interesting phrase. Do you mean win a race? Yeah. Legitimate playoff, pointing their way in, advancing around. That's probably a bridge too far. But again, this is a guy that won 2 races as the crew chief to David Rudiman in the Cup Series. Once at Charlotte in a rain-shortened race, and once at Chicagoland in a race where he legitimately won on pace and strategy. That means no disrespect to David Rudiman. I'm just saying you don't think of David Rudiman as an every-week contender. He won 2 races with him and that team. So I think he's going to make everyone better. I really do. It's going to be very intriguing to see just how he changes things over there. And I know I have a friend that is in the Spire organization, and he always brags about what you just said, the environment, the vibe of all of it. Everyone that seems to work at Spire loves Spire. And that's something to just keep in the back of your mind, moving forward when hires like this get made by the team.
Yeah, for sure. And great point bringing up David Rudiman as well. And again, speaks to how long Childers has been around, how many drivers he's worked with, and very similar situation over there. Michael Waltrip Racing at the time was still a pretty relatively new team, and Rudiman a young. Apologies there. It looks like I at least disappeared. I don't know. Are we back?
Should be. Yeah, I've got you.
Okay. I don't know. It looked like that was the whole thing. It wasn't just on my end. Maybe it was just on my end. I don't know. But hopefully we're back now. It's telling me the internet's fine. I was just saying, good comparison bringing up Rudiman and Michael Waltrip Racing, because I think they were in a similar position at the time that Spire Motorsports is in right now. And, him being able to win a couple of races with David, maybe he'll be able to win a couple of races with Corey in 2025. So we'll keep our eye on that. In the meantime, more silly season news as we transition over to our second story now, and something that broke earlier this afternoon. Front Row Motorsports has announced that they've signed Noah Gragson to a multi-year contract to drive for them in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2025 and beyond. After Chase Briscoe found a new home at Joe Gibbs Racing and Josh Berry with the Wood Brothers, Gragson becomes the third Stewart-Haas Racing driver to land a ride next year. Gragson will join the previously announced Todd Gilliland as the two will become teammates once again. They both drove for Kyle Busch Motorsports in the Truck Series at the same time several years ago as well. Front Row has been a team on the rise in recent years as they've received more support from Ford Performance and started up an alliance with Team Penske. Gragson said, "A lot of people have noticed Front Row's growth in the last few seasons and believe it's a team capable of winning and desiring to win more." Graphic courtesy of Front Row Motorsports. Matthew, given the team's rise in performance, is Noah Gragson coming to Front Row Motorsports at the right time?
I think so. I think he comes to them at the right time for himself and for the team. I think this is going to work out extremely well. Noah has shown a lot of progression this year on the track. He's shown a lot of progression this year off the track. On the track, went on that run 3 straight top 10s, Talladega, Dover, and Kansas, 14th in the next race at Darlington, so 4 straight top 15 finishes. He's had runs like that this year, 10th at Nashville a couple of weeks ago too. So Gragson has gotten better this year. He's shown some maturity. Hopefully he'll continue with that because, at times, many times in Noah's NASCAR career, we don't know what's around the corner for him. But we're really hoping, I think all of us are hoping that he can show what kind of talent he has on a consistent basis. We know how much talent he does have. And Front Row Motorsports, yeah, I mean, they've been punching above their weight the last couple of years. They've gone up in the pecking order at Ford, of course. That was a big story at the start of the season. They've won 2 or 3 poles now, right? McDowell won a pole at Atlanta. Am I wrong in saying he won a pole at Gateway? I feel like he won the pole at Gateway.
3 poles, I think.
Yeah, so they've shown speed in qualifying. They've shown speed in the race. Todd Gilliland has had plenty of races this year where he's run better than what he finished. And there are some weekends where he's converted that into a good finish. So, yeah, I think this is perfect for both sides.
Yeah, Atlanta, Talladega, and Gateway. Those are the 3. I knew there was one that I was missing there. But, yeah, I mean, Front Row, again, kind of what we alluded to just previously with the Spire conversation. I think there's a difference between playoff contender and championship contender. I don't know if Front Row's championship contender yet, but they're certainly playoff contenders now with how strong Michael McDowell's come on here, and Todd Gilliland as well. To his credit, I think he's certainly improved quite a bit as well. So we'll see what Gragson can do. Certainly a driver that I think is maturing, kind of coming into his own, and Front Row Motorsports. You can probably say that about the team as a whole as well. So we'll see what happens there. Car numbers, crew chiefs, and sponsorship details will be announced at a later time. Front Row is, of course, expanding to a 3-car team next year. Team owner Bob Jenkins said Gragson has the potential to break out and become a winner in the Cup Series for years to come. Now, the team will have to figure out who will drive its third Cup car following this announcement. Riley Herbst has driven for Front Row before in the Cup Series on a part-time basis. We don't know if he'll drive for the Haas factory team in Xfinity next year or what his plans will be. Ryan Preece is now the only SHR driver from 2024 yet to land a deal for 2025. However, Bob Pockris from Fox Sports says that Zane Smith could potentially return to the team. Sam Mayer and Christian Eckes are perhaps on the short list as candidates as well. So, Matthew, of those names, or maybe there's a name that we didn't mention that might be coming to mind here, who do you think would be the best fit to complete Front Row's 2025 Cup Series driver lineup?
That's a very... it's a loaded question because the names that you mentioned are all crazy talented. I've always loved Zane Smith. I remember one of the first times I saw Zane Smith was in a truck race at Charlotte that Cup guys were in, and he just I've loved him since then. That might have been 2020 or thereabouts.
The bounty deal,
I think he would
with Harvick, right?
Yeah. I think that would be a perfect fit. Christian Eckes, his name keeps coming up, and rightfully so. Does he need some Xfinity Series seasoning? I don't think that would be the worst idea in the world, especially with the current shape of the truck series. Jumping straight from trucks to Cup could be dangerous. But I really love Zane Smith. He's been there before. I think it's a perfect fit, like a puzzle piece.
I think one name that would be probably a massive wild card here, but what a reunion it might be for Brett Moffitt. I think he's somebody that is should be a highly coveted free agent right now, former Truck Series champion. And I think a lot of people forget former Cup Series Rookie of the Year before he went on to win that Cup Series or that Truck Series championship rather. Of course, it's been a while since those days were going on, but who knows? You never know what's going to happen in this sport. I think a lot of names, like we mentioned, still on that short list for that third seat. So we will keep our eye on that. And in the meantime, we move on now to our third story and our hot topic. Certainly a hot topic over on X and Facebook, I'm sure, as well. On the cool-down lap this past weekend at Chicago after Alex Bowman won on the city streets, Bubba Wallace made contact with the Hendrick Motorsports driver, and he was penalized for it earlier today. Wallace only received a $50,000 fine. No action was taken on the post-race incident involving Chase Elliott and Daniel Suarez. Now, according to Bob Pockris from Fox Sports, in-car camera footage showed the wheel jerking in Bowman's hands when Wallace hit him. Wallace made this move as payback because Bowman had spun him out earlier in the Chicago street race. Wallace is currently 45 points below the cut line, and it's looking increasingly likely that he will need, that he will need a win in order to make the playoffs. But perhaps you could argue he should feel lucky that NASCAR didn't take away points like they did for Carson Hocevar last week. Photo on your screen, courtesy of Sean Gardner from Getty Images. Matthew, was this penalty justified, or do you think NASCAR should have stuck with the boys have at it motto and let this one slide?
I don't know what they should have done, but they do need to get this under control. If this is the precedent that they want to set it. And do it all the time. If this is not a precedent they don't want to set, then this needs to be the line in the sand. Because a lot goes down on the cool-down laps. We've seen, this is not new. This has been going on for ages in NASCAR. Stuff like that, similar to that, going on in the cool-down lap. And there needs to be some line in the sand on what's over the line and what's not. And I really don't like going back and forth. I know there was some speculation. We saw the wheel jerk out of Bowman's hand, and he did squeeze him into the wall. Window net was down, which I would imagine that was probably the biggest case of it. But this happens a lot. And we do not need to be going forward and judging, well, did the wheel come out of his hand? How much did it come out of his hand? Did he touch the wall? Did he hit the wall? Did he brush the wall? I don't want to go into all of that. That would be crazy in my mind to go that far. So should they have fined him? Sure. Okay. Should they have taken points away? No. But I just hope going forward that there is a clear black and white in what on a cool down lap and what after the race warrants a penalty and what doesn't. Because, I mean, and I know this is the one that everybody on social media has gone to today, Martin Truex Jr. just punting Jimmy Johnson after the first Roval race, which was very uncalled for. But I just don't want to be analyzing every little thing that goes down on a cool down lap. You know, I mean, at some point, that's going to get so far out of everyone's control, it won't even be funny.
I just want them to be consistent. And I know that, I mean, let's be clear, you know, whatever they did here was not going to please everybody, because you've got people saying, oh, NASCAR's gone soft, you know, but Chase Elliott didn't get a penalty, you know, I mean, that's, you know, something that they should have just let go. You've got other people saying he should be suspended for this, which I think is the complete opposite extreme. I mean, he got one race for right rear hooking Kyle Larson into the wall at Las Vegas under green flag conditions going 180 miles an hour. If that's only worth a one race suspension, I don't think suspension should even be in the question here for bumping into somebody on the cooldown lap. I think they about got it right. I don't have a problem with Bubba Wallace being fined. I have a problem with Bubba Wallace being fined and Chase Elliott not being fined. And I know people said, you know, you could say that, you know, the Bubba incident blew up more because, you know, of Bubba's past, you know, behavior and incidents like this, you know, even one with Alex Bowman, I think back at the Roval with, you know, throwing the Powerade in his face, you know, and Bubba Wallace is a more polarizing name in the sport, you know, and it's, you know, for unfortunate reasons, obviously, but, you know, I think it was inevitable that incident was going to blow up, and even more so because NBC was very quick to show that one on the cooldown lap as it happened. It took us, you know, until we got to social media to see the replay between what happened with Chase Elliott. So that maybe played a role in it as well, but I don't think that should play a role in NASCAR's decision to hand out fines. So I say either let both incidents go or fine them both probably a similar, if not the exact same amount of money here, because I think that, again, the consistently inconsistent allegations came back for NASCAR this weekend, and I think that's just the most frustrating part of the entire deal is, you know, NASCAR, you know, frequently making a decision and then 2 weeks later, a similar incident happens and they decide to do something completely differently. This weekend, it happened on the same exact race weekend, and we've got two different outcomes here for two very similar post-race deals, and I think that's probably not a good thing. And but, Adam agrees with the fine as well.
But is anyone else tired of the monetary fines? I mean, I don't know how much that matters.
I get that too.
I don't know how much that matters to anyone. I mean, unless you're going to start making them 6 digits and upper 6 digits, I don't know how much that really matters. I mean, I know I don't want to get into talking about anyone's bank accounts or anything like that, but I'm a little tired of that. I think, and I'm with you, just be consistent. Like I said, going forward, we need to have a very clear line of what is over the top for a fine or a penalty and what is not. But yeah, anything more than a monetary fine would have been ridiculous for Chase or for Wallace. I think more importantly, and this would be a conversation down the road, we might need to have a conversation about Darrell Wallace Jr. does react a lot about stuff like this. It happens a lot. That might be the conversation to have further, but as far as this conversation, no, that's the most that should have happened was a fine.
Yeah, totally agree. And again, just to be clear out there to all the Bubba Wallace fans, I try to stay consistent myself. I know people were bringing up the Denny Hamlin incident in Martinsville after Alex Bowman won that race, and he parked on the front stretch as they were doing burnouts. And I was like, hey, listen, that I didn't like that either. And you can go check the receipts on this very network. I said it as much at the time. I was not a fan of that, and I don't remember off the top of my head if any penalties or fines came from that incident, but I'm of the opinion that, you know, it should be a similar sort of deal there as well, because I would like to see these. I mean, I understand we say that, you know, today's drivers are so vanilla, they don't have personality, and then we turn around and we're going to fine them for showing that personality in the cooldown lap. And I'm just sitting here thinking, we can have our drivers show personality and not use their car to run into somebody like, it's not a mutually exclusive thing. We can do both. Drivers can show personality outside the car and also keep safety at the forefront of their minds inside the car. Because you're right, but Bowman's window net being down. I mean, if his hand had been out the window as he was waving to the crowd, I mean, you don't want to get into situations like that. I mean, I know that they're going much slower on a cool down lap, obviously, but I'm never a fan of intentional wrecks, no matter what the circumstances are. I know it's probably a stretch to call this a wreck, but it's, contact between two cars that didn't need to happen. And I think that, anytime you see that, it's quite unfortunate. And again, I have no problem with the fine. I have a problem with the inconsistency that comes from that because nothing happened with Chase Elliott.
Can I just say, too, something I have a problem with and needs to be addressed? Burnouts on the cooldown lap. This is happening a lot. SVG, Ty Gibbs last year, Bowman on Sunday. Like, can we not let everyone get through, especially on Sunday, a very narrow course? Can we get everyone through before we start doing burnouts or whatever else? I have a problem with that, too. I think that's only going to lead into something disastrous in the future.
I just want to tell you, Matthew, I think 75 to 80% of our audience recently has been from Australia, New Zealand. Just warning you, they might not take too kindly to you not wanting SVG to do a drift burnouts on the cooldown laps here.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Fair enough. All right. We'll leave it there for now. I'm sure people are going to fire away comment sections as they have been all morning and all afternoon. But we'll leave it there for the moment at the time. Or right now, here's Matt White with the Grid EPI update. Take it away, Matt.
Hi everybody, Matt White here for this week's Grid Endurance Performance Index Update, Week 15 of scoring in the biggest Drivers' Championship in the world. I'm claiming that one. We are now 73 races out of the 152 with the Grid Endurance Performance Index of 2024, and this is what happened this past weekend where we had some races all across Europe and beyond. We'll start with the DTM. They were at the Norris Ring this weekend for their street race. They're only one of the season. 2 races, of course, across the weekend. Rene Rast getting the victory on Saturday. Nicky Thiem getting an emotional win for him on Sunday. The Mazzano 12 Hours was run and won at the weekend by Michael Doppelmayr, Pierre Caffer, Elliot Earnhardt and Sven Herberger. The European Le Mans Series had its comeback after its Le Mans break. They were at Imola in Italy. A win overall and in the LMP2 class for Robert Kubica, Louis Delatraz and Johnny Edgar. Richard Bradley, Alex Quinn and Crichton Lindroyens winning in LMP2 Pro-Am. The duo of Matt Bell and Adam Alley winning in LMP3. And a very, very big news story, which will be covered in Women in Motorsport later on this week. Here on the Grid Network, Sarah Bovey, Rahel Frey and Michelle Gatting getting their first victory in the European Le Mans Series this season in the GT3 category. Outside of Europe, there was 2 races at Suzuka for the GT World Challenge Asia. Saturday's winners, Hirabon and Yu Kanemaru. And on Sunday, Liu Hangzhou and Jules Gounon getting the victory for Mercedes. Here's how the points standings look through this week. No changes in the top 10, absolutely no changes at all in terms of scoring or position from last week. So Andre Lotterer continues to lead, although that may be under threat this weekend because we have a very busy weekend as such. British GT are back there at Snetterton for 2 sprint races across the weekend. The 2 headline events though are the World Endurance Championship, back on track after the last round of course was the Le Mans 24 Hours. They're in Brazil for the first time in many years at Interlagos, and IMSA goes north of the border to the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park LMP2, the headline act in that one. No GTP cars on the racetrack. LMP2 will be the headline makers. Those races and a points update on the show for you next week from the Grid Endurance Performance Index from the Grid Network.
Thank you, Matt. Now time for some more motorsports news stories from around the world. Formula 2 driver Ollie Bearman will step up to Formula 1 full-time in 2025 after signing a multi-year contract with Haas F1. The 19-year-old British driver currently drives for Prema in Formula 2, and thanks to his role as a junior driver and reserve driver for Ferrari, Bearman made his F1 debut earlier this year in Saudi Arabia and scored points in plays. Carlos Sainz on the F2 side of things, it's really been a down year for Prema and Bearman, who only has 1 win this season in the sprint race in Austria, and he's currently outside of the top 10 in points. However, none of that really matters because his spot on the 2025 F1 grid is secured, regardless of how the rest of his 2024 F2 campaign goes. Bearman said it makes him immensely proud that he can say out loud that he's going to be an F1 driver and thinks it's truly incredible to be one of the very few people who get to do what they dreamed of as a child. Photo courtesy of Oz F1. The NTT INDYCAR Series' trip to the Meadowhouse Sports Car Course last weekend marked 1 year since Simon Pagenaud had his violent crash that resulted in him suffering a concussion. Since that incident, Pagenaud continued to recover from the injury and hasn't returned to competition yet. However, he released this statement to reflect on how his life has changed in the last year. Pagenaud said, Mid-Ohio, now exactly a year ago, was a life-changing event for me. Although at times I struggle with what has happened, I am also so grateful to be here and be improving every day. Brain injuries are not fully understood. Through this journey, I have learned a lot about myself as an athlete, as a father, and as a person. As I continue my rehab, one of my biggest challenge has been to accept my new normal and not been able to be at my highest level. I am a fighter, and I will continue to push myself to be where I want to be. Thank you, everyone, for your continued support. So right there, Simon Pagenaud speaking out 1 year later. And now moving on to the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Connor Daly signed with Nice Motorsports to run 3 races this year, and Daly will drive the number 44 Chevrolet Silverado beginning next Friday night at Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park. Then he'll run Kansas in late September and Homestead in late October. In the past, Daly has run 3 races with Nice in the Truck Series, 2 at Las Vegas and 1 at Mid-Ohio last year, where he picked up a top 20 finish. Daly said he's excited to work with the team again, praising team owner Al Nice and general manager Cody Efall for being great to him and supporting his Indy 500 efforts over the years. Graphic courtesy of Nice Motorsports. And today we learned that Daly is also going to be doing double duty on Indy weekend because he's also running the Xfinity Series race the following day at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He'll drive the number 26 Toyota for Sam Hunt Racing with sponsorship from Polka Dot. Daly said when he heard that Xfinity was returning to the Indy Oval, he had this race circled on his calendar and feels lucky to race in the Indy 500 and NASCAR Brickyard weekend in the same year. Graphic courtesy of Sam Hunt Racing. And after sitting out the last NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race at Nashville, Thad Moffitt is back this weekend, but driving for a different team. Moffitt and Lance Moore, the team owner of Faction 46, have parted ways, so this means Moffitt will continue his 2024 Truck Series campaign with Young's Motorsports. He'll keep his traditional number 46 Chevrolet and will run the rest of the year with the Tyler Young on operation. And Thad Moffitt released a statement saying, I'm excited to announce I'll be back behind the wheel of the 46 truck this weekend in Pocono and the remainder of the 2024 season with Young's Motorsports. I look forward to what the future holds as I continue to work hard to sharpen my skills for the future. Thank you to everyone who has supported me throughout this journey. And now some IndyCar news. Catherine Legg will compete in this weekend's NTT IndyCar Series doubleheader at Iowa Speedway. Legg returns to the number 51 Honda for Delcorn Racing. This will be her first non-Indy 500 start since 2012 at Fontana. Team owner Delcorn said he's excited to have Legg back in the car, praising her for doing a good job for the team at Indy and during the test session at Iowa leading up to the race. You'll hear more about Legg's upcoming short oval races on a feature episode of Women in Motorsport, photo taken by Carl Zemlin from Penske Entertainment. And our last story for tonight, we have an additional medical update. We have additional medical updates on NHRA legend John Force. Force suffered a traumatic brain injury, including a fractured sternum and right wrist. He's continuing to deal with cognitive and behavioral symptoms related to the traumatic brain injury, but he's been able to converse with medical staff, family, and Robert Height, the president of John Force Racing. However, there have been periods of confusion, but the doctor said that this will take time and patience to treat. And on a positive note, Force has been able to start walking with the assistance of medical staff members. And after spending 15 days in varying levels of intensive care at VCU Medical Center, Force was released from the hospital aboard an AirMed ambulance. He took a 3-hour flight to a neurological rehab center where they'll continue to treat his traumatic brain injury. The medical staff said the road ahead for Force in his recovery is a difficult one. Force's family members said that there's no timetable for his stay at this new facility, which was chosen because of his past success of working with race car drivers with similar injuries. Photo courtesy of John Force Racing. And on behalf of everyone at the Grid Network, we're going to continue to wish John Force nothing but the best. And now I'm going to shift gears because, Ben, I believe we have one race to do for Pick a Winner this week.
Thank you, Kobe. We are going to go to Pick a Winner now, and it's IMSA in Canada, and it's for the LMP2 class, since it's that will be the overall winner this week. I usually tell viewers when we're doing Supercars, MotoGP, don't take any fantasy advice from me. Certainly true this weekend. I'm just taking a complete and total shot in the dark here. I'm a very casual INSTA and sports car fan, and even then it's really only the top prototype classes. So for LMP2, just looking over the entry list, I like the duo of Ben Keating and Ben Hamley in the number 2 United Auto Sports entry. That's going to be my pick. Kelby, what do you have?
This is tough. I know we're used to doing the GTPs one of the few times this year, and I know when we get to VIR, we're going to be doing the GTs, which is equally as difficult. But LMP2, looking at the entry list, it looks very difficult. But I'm going to go with the number 99 for AO Racing. Think PJ Hyatt and Louis Delatraz is going to take Spike the Dragon to the top step of the podium at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. And with that said, then I turn over to Ben for our Hots and Knots segment.
Thanks, Kobe. And you two can participate in Pick a Winner. We don't have a graphic tonight, unfortunately, but I'm sure we'll get that up at some point on our social media. Get your name on the leaderboard and try to catch up to those of us that are at the top here. Time for Hots and Knots, presented by insert your company name here, as our friend Matt White always says. Matthew, since you're our guest tonight, I guess I can let you go ahead and start here. Do you have any hots from this past weekend, whether that's Chicago, Mid-Ohio, Great Britain, the Silverstone Grand Prix, anything else going on in the motorsports world?
Well, the hot has to be that British Grand Prix. What a race. Finally, we had a race where everyone was saying rain in 5 minutes, rain in 10 minutes, and it actually rained. I feel like we get so many races where you hear that and it never rains. What a refreshing Grand Prix that was. Terrible for George Russell to have it turn out the way it did for him, but what a great race that was. And amazing to see Lewis Hamilton win again for the first time in almost 1,000 days, I think I read. So what a great race that was at Silverstone, which is just a glorious place. The history and the tradition of that race at that place. What a great race. Alex Bowman getting the win, but not only getting the win to snap an 80 race winless drought, out-dueling Joey Hand on a street course that was wet but drying on wet tires. I mean, what a feat. That sounds like a Mad Lib that Alex Bowman beat Joey Hand in those circumstances. Great win for Alex. I like Alex. I've been hard on Alex, as I feel like a lot of people have, but really awesome to see him get a win. But you know the pressure had to be up there. The success of Hendrick all the time, the success of Hendrick this year, and for him to have gone that long without winning and to get that win in those circumstances, that's awesome for him. I might be cheating here. This is a hot and a not at the same time, if that's possible.
Sure.
And I'm looking forward, not from this past weekend. The not is that it is Lee Diffie's last weekend doing IndyCar. The hot is that afterwards he'll be doing NASCAR. So I hope Lee goes out with a bang on IndyCar, doubleheader weekend in Iowa, and I can't wait to get him in on NASCAR. It's going to be amazing to hear him.
Stay tuned for more on NBC, because I've certainly got some knots.
I do too.
Adam Lemery's IMSA at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park number 2 car. Well, there you go. So we'll be in agreement on that. Hots you took mine. I think everybody's hot, and quite possibly. And I know there's 104 of them to choose from, but I don't think it's hyperbolic. Probably the most popular win of Lewis Hamilton's career, and I'm talking universally across the Formula One fandom, because I saw people these days that this past weekend here that said, back in the day, I couldn't stand this guy. He was just winning all the time. And I think you're seeing the same thing with Max Verstappen now, and with you there, Matthew. But it's not even that, people didn't like Lewis Hamilton. It was that they wanted some parity. They didn't like the fact that it was the same guy. We joke now. You saw it during the Euros when the Netherlands played Austria, and everybody's saying, well, this is just the anthem for Formula One racing, because we've heard it from Max and Red Bull for so often in the last few years. But that was the British and German national anthem when Lewis was winning all those races and championships with Mercedes. And you were so desperate for somebody to come up and challenge him. And then Max Verstappen does that, and they have this brilliant championship battle. And everybody's so excited to see Max has finally taken down the unstoppable unbeatable force that Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes were for so many years. And then the regulations changed, and now that's Max Verstappen, and everybody's so happy to say. I mean, it's kind of fascinating how quickly those things can change, and you never really know what you got till it's gone in that sense. But I think regardless, you can like Lewis Hamilton, you cannot like Lewis Hamilton. He can be your favorite, he can be your most hated. I think you have to acknowledge he's an incredible talent, one of the greatest of all time. And to see him go 2.5 years, because this guy had never, that was one of the records he held. He had won in every year in which he competed until 2022. And then he doesn't win again in 2023. And then he's going to Ferrari, and people are wondering, does he still have what it takes to compete at the highest level? Well, he certainly put all those doubts to bed this weekend. And to do it in his home race, his last British Grand Prix with Mercedes, 9 times he's won there, another Formula One record, another feather in his cap, so to speak. Truly sensational and a great race overall. I wish that Russell hadn't retired, because I would have loved to see an all-British podium. I think that would have been the only thing that could have topped what we saw this weekend. But to your point, Matthew, as well, the fact that we got the weather, we got the rain, and the fact that it was wet in one part of a track but dry in another part of a track. The wrench that throws in your strategy. How often do we see a scenario like that? So that is certainly my hot. And again, I feel like a broken record here since you mentioned this as well, but Joey Hand didn't get the win. I would have loved to add a stage 60 Chicago win diecast next to the Project 1 race win diecast from last year, but 4th place finish nonetheless. Still a great result for that entire program, but Joey Hand in particular, first time back in a cup car, I think in a couple of years, and certainly the best equipment he's ever had. So that was cool to see. You and I might be on the same page on this. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe you got a knot that I'm not thinking of. We could be here all night. I don't know how much time we have left. I got a lot of knots on my mind right now, but I'll leave it there. What do you have for the not portion of this segment?
Yeah, we could be here a while, like you said. Just the weather in Chicago, again, 2nd year in a row, is devastating for the fans watching on TV and for the fans there. To have rain again, not give us a clean race for what could have been. But at least we got an entertaining race, which we did last year too. But goodness gracious, I'm so tired of the rain. I'm so tired. It's 3 straight weeks. We've had a delay.
Yeah.
Lengthy delay. The New Hampshire delay was ridiculous. Nashville was shorter. And then this past weekend, another lengthy delay. Just, it really is exhausting. Rain delays are, truly. So that's a knot that we can't do anything about. We all complain about the weather, but we can't do anything about it. But again, NASCAR can't do anything about the weather. But I keep pounding the desk about they can do something about start times. I know TV dictates this stuff these days, but we want to have big ratings, and to get big ratings, we need to start the races at 3 or 3:30 or 4. Okay. Can we at least give us a little bit of cushion in a situation like this? I'm not asking for noon or 12:30 start times anymore. It's never going to happen again. It's just not.
Well, I'll die on that hill. I'll continue asking for it, but
Yeah,
good for you.
I'd love it.
You're
It's never going to happen again.
I'm delusional over here.
But can we please, can we get 30 or 45 minutes at least? To start that race at 4 p.m. Eastern, which was earlier than last year, by the way, but to start that race at 4 p.m. Eastern it's a drag to get there. And then all of these summer races in the hot and humid summer, and do I know something about humidity? I'm tired of it here in the Southeast. Yeah. I'm done with it. I'm done with summer as a whole. But to start the races in the middle of summer at 3 and 3:30 every weekend, you're just asking for stuff like this. And I can't imagine what we're going to get at Pocono. We always get rain in Pocono. We get rain and fog at Pocono, and lightning and thunder and everything else. I don't know what we're going to get at Pocono this weekend, but it would just be nice if we could get a little bit back on the start times. 45 minutes, something like that. All I'm really asking for.
Were you talking about the Xfinity race starting at 4? Because I feel like it was, I think I texted a group chat of mine. It's like it's 5:12 on the East Coast, and we still haven't gone green here. So that one I thought was like I don't know if they were supposed to wave the green flag at 5, but I don't know. I've kind of tried to blur the whole first stage from my memory because that was exhausting to deal with as well. Again, I know that it's a touchy subject on social media because for some reason we're not allowed to criticize the second network that comes in to do the second half of the year. But I mean, NBC, my goodness, I got to say, in complete fairness, I thought the production value was decent. I thought it was a pretty well put together broadcast in terms of the on-air presentation until we got word that it was going to be a timed race. And Matthew, you brought this up as well in a tweet. I remember that. We know it's a timed race now. Why do we still have lap X of 75 up in the top left? And we show this clock on screen for about 8 to 10 seconds saying, oh, this is how much time we have until whatever it was, 9:20 on the East Coast, that, we're going to run out of daylight, and then they're going to throw the white flag, or it's going to be 2 to go. I don't know. I was confused about that. I still don't know, but we got a 100% crystal clear answer when it comes to what NASCAR was doing in that situation. But I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, Matthew, I know you'll appreciate this. It's a game show reference. The Weakest Link reboot, they didn't even have the clock on screen for the entire round there. So I guess NBC just has something against, letting us know how much time we have left for some reason. But I mean, how hard is that? I'm not in a production booth. I don't know what goes into changing those graphics over, but I imagine it can't be that difficult to change the lap counter to a timer that counts down so that we constantly know in the year 2024, I would think we would have that capability here. So again,
they do it for IMSA. The same network does it for IMSA.
It's the same deal for IMSA. And the second knot that goes with this is for all my friends on Twitter /X/social media. If that had been a Fox broadcast and Fox had done that, I guarantee you the entire timeline would have been, and justifiably so, by the way. I mean, I'll criticize Fox as much as anybody. I think they have a lot of shortcomings that they need to improve. But as soon as NBC takes over, I feel like there are things that they could do much better that we just hear crickets about because apparently everybody's so Fox fatigued that NBC can do no wrong. It just drives me insane. But, and again, I'm not sitting up here on my soapbox saying, NBC's just as bad as Fox or they're terrible or anything. Matthew, I know you brought this up as well. I think, again, probably an unpopular opinion, but the fact that Dale Jr. is taking a year off, they put Dylan Welch in that spot instead. And again, that's not even like, I'll criticize Dale in the booth as much as anybody, but, even if I thought Dale were a pretty good driver analyst in terms of being a color guy, it makes zero sense to put him in a radio style play-by-play position on the broadcast. So putting Dylan Welch there, I think certainly a massive step up. So I'm glad NBC went ahead and did that. I still think the radio style deal is a little bit pointless when you're still throwing it to Letarte and Allen up in the booth for half the laps anyway, and you never know what's going on. But hey, that's just me.
Yeah, that was Dylan Welch coming on to the radio style broadcast because everything sounded so much clearer and cleaner. Next step would be to get Jeff Burton to the booth, but then you would have 3-person in the booth for a radio style broadcast. That doesn't work. Just give him the week off, or put him on pit road with Kim like they did for the Indy 500. I don't care, but bring another radio guy in for Jeff. Kurt Becker, Dan Hubbard, PRN person. Who cares who? Just
probably have to be an MRN person because they got Bagley, but
that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, I couldn't imagine why we were getting the clock and then we weren't getting the clock, and then it's like, what are we doing? And I noticed the same thing that you said. We're still counting laps. Doesn't matter what lap it is. Now, granted, I will level it out. NBC did a terrific job again with all the drone shots and the aerial shots and just the scenery.
Yeah.
You can see why a street course race is wanted, because just all of the scenery looked amazing. I am officially on the bandwagon of once we go to Chicago again next year, because it sounds like we will, maybe not on July 4th weekend, but once we get through that 3-year period, I want this thing in Denver. Could you imagine the scenes in Denver for a street race? But you can see why a network wants it and why NASCAR wants it, because the production value, again, was great with that. But see, I can say positive things about NBC. I'll say a lot when Lee Diffie comes in, which he tweeted about earlier today.
Yeah.
Which I liked.
Yeah, very low tech. I saw, I think Junior actually tweeted about it. He says the NASCAR and NBC production crew kicks so much, fill in the blank here. I don't know how PG rated we want to make the show here, but such great shots today at Chicago. And then fan, very low tech here. I'm just going to show my phone, but I think this is probably the image that you were referring to there. Just the city in the background. You can see the street cars and buses with the headlights and the traffic lights, and you've got a NASCAR Cup Series car coming right at you at however many miles an hour those things are going at that point in the track. That's fantastic. And I'll give NBC credit there. The camera shots were certainly on point. It's something that we frequently criticize Fox over. But again, I'm of the mindset that both networks have their pluses, both networks have their minuses. I just don't understand why everybody is so quick to pile on Fox, but everybody's so hesitant to pile on NBC. Because I think it's important to hold the networks accountable and hold them in check here. And I don't understand why it's so hard to have a clock on the screen for the entire time during a timed race, and NBC couldn't give us that. So I'm sorry. I think they deserve to be called out on it, but what do I know?
By the way, worth mentioning that all of this talk about the city of Chicago doesn't want this on 4th of July weekend next year. That brings into account, if we do have the race again next year in Chicago, what weekend does it land on? What network does that land on? Amazon, TNT, NBC would have to be really late in the season. Fox would have to be early. Again, these are the things that I talk about and think about because that's the kind of life I live. But yeah, I think we're on the same page there. By the way, I forgot this in HOTS. Thank goodness the British Grand Prix fell on the weekend it did, because for the last handful of years, it's been falling on the same day as the Wimbledon final. And of course, this Sunday we have the Wimbledon final and England's in the Euro final. So if you can imagine a Wimbledon final, England in a major tournament final, and the British Grand Prix on the same Sunday, good Lord, could you even imagine? So thankfully we got it out of the way this past weekend.
Yeah, and congratulations to our friends Matt White and Joshua Birch. I watched the end of that game right before I left the office to come home to get ready to do this show, and England at the last second pulling it out, and I think at the very beginning of stoppage time there. So great to see them in the Euro final, and like you mentioned, certainly a hot this weekend was the British Grand Prix, no doubt. So yeah, I mean, Matthew, if you don't have anything else, I think we can roll into the closing here. Certainly no shortage of things to talk about. And again, we thank you for joining us on such short notice tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. Can't wait for Pocono. Definitely can't wait for Indianapolis. And then that Olympic break is going to be well timed.
Yes.
Take a break and unplug because, yeah, these last 3 weeks have been exhausting. But thank you again.
Hey, that's a hot for NBC. The fact that they're doing the Olympics, they forced us to take some time off. We're not going to complain about that. And I know Kobe and I were talking before we came on the air about the NBA deals being announced. Looks like TNT is going to go away. So you're not the only one that keeps up with that stuff. I know that you're very passionate about it, but I don't want to see inside the NBA go. I can tell you that much. So I'm keeping my eye on that news for sure.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. So I like talking about this with people that that appreciate stuff like this. I could go on for hours about that.
All right. Well, as we come up here on not quite 1 hour, we're going to wrap up the show here. But before we do that, we'll take a look at our upcoming schedule. On Saturday, Grid Live pre-race will be on the air at noon Eastern. Sunday, Grid Live wrap-up will be on the air 90 minutes after the NASCAR Cup Series race at Pocono, assuming no weather issues like we were just talking about there. And then on Monday, hopefully we don't have to add the Cup Series to our lineup here, but we will have the Truck and Xfinity recaps from Pocono as well as Indy Next at Iowa. So stay tuned for me and Brandon Crossland bringing you that on Monday at 7 Eastern. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you to everybody who has helped us get well over 1,000 subscribers now. Now we're on the road to 2,000. Be sure to hit the bell icon so that you're notified for when we go on air, and follow us on all our social media platforms. Visit our website, gridnetworktv.com. If you really liked what you saw tonight, you can take a few minutes after the show to join these wonderful people in investing in the Grid Network through Patreon. Join Colin, Deschelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew, who invest each month in the Grid Network. We encourage you to join these fine folks who help keep us on the air, help us pay the bills, and help us on our way towards our goal of $500 per month, which will allow us to begin attending races on site on a more regular basis, sending our team to the track more often, to cover more races, and continuing to expand our coverage for you, the viewers. So the link to that is in the video description box below. Or if you'd rather make a one-time donation instead, you can click on the Buy Me a Coffee link, get your name on the board, invest as much as you want, consider buying a specific on-air personality a cup of coffee, and they will thank you on the air. For Kobe Lambeth, for Matthew Owens from the Ultimate Sports Radio Network, I'm Ben Schneider from Grid Encore and NASCAR.info. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.